Okay, well, obviously this is my Indiana Jones theme episode, coincidentally with the whole movie coming out soon that I'm not even going to comment on that now. The internet is ablaze, I'm sure. The point, though, of Indiana Jones, or Indy as a theme, does come back to a few staples of menswear that, kind of got lost or abandoned along the way. I am mostly unscripted here, so hopefully this will be not too. What's he really going to talk about for more than five? Yeah, well, it might be a shorter video than the last one, too. But obviously, the hat was not in the same amount of style until Indiana Jones came along and kind of the hat came back in popularity a little bit. The leather jacket was still around, but in different forms. People forget, in fact, that Fonzie didn't wear black leather. He wore a brown aviator jacket. I think A2 is the standard Army one, and G1 is the standard Navy one. I might have got the numbers wrong on that. I used to know all this kind of thing off the top of my head, and a few years go by and nobody cares except for internet people. Um, this one actually is, believe it or not, a size too small, or maybe two, but it's an old Mervin's and still holding up pretty well. I have a few others that are. None of them are the true Indiana jacket. That's a modified version of the. Again, I think it's the A2, where they've changed. He's got more of a gusset than even this one has, and he has uh, none of this ribbing, which I've seen used ones where this can be pretty brutalized, and I don't know what a leather specialist can really do for you if you have that issue. I saw it at a used boutique, and I didn't bother to get it since I already had this one. Um, and this isn't the true Indy hat. Well, the real true Indy hat we all know is a really expensive felt thing. This is more of a greenish knockoff model, but there's a brown branded knockoff model that I have somewhere, and looks a little bit more close to the true, but this does not have a stiff brim. The true Indy hat would have a stiff brim. For those of you who are purist reenactors or whatever, you're only going to want the real Indy boots. You're only going to want the real Indy shirt. This is not a real Indy shirt. This is an old Kmart shirt that I had from whenever Kmart, 20 years maybe. I don't know. It still fits, but it's not the proper thickness of an Indy shirt. Speaking on practicality, obviously most of the Indy clothes aren't really practical for winter. A leather jacket, yes, but you would want a heavier one or more lining underneath or layers. The true Indy shirt is a much lighter weight. Um, I don't actually know where they got those shirts because I've rarely seen where they're customized with the ribbing down the front. Duluth did a version of it a few years ago, but there was a much heavier twill fabric, and I still have one of those somewhere. And of course, the pants are supposed to be kind of this army brown issue. I haven't quite found that exact shade. Most people interpret it as more green than brown, same as the hat. This is, like I said, this is, if you look at it closely, it's technically green, but most people read it as brown. It's brown enough. So I've gotten away with, like most people who've gone as Indiana Jones for multiple Halloweens, I've gotten away with green pants before in a, more of a sagey olive shade, and nobody's said anything about it. Basically, Indiana Jones, like I said in the first video, if you were going to go with style choices, it's just an army outfit or a Boy Scout outfit kind of updated. It's a khaki shirt, twill pants, and an army flyer's jacket, There's not a whole mystery there. I mean, I was kind of delighted when I came across an Indy fan site that said that at the time, especially my body specifications and my head size were almost identical. Apparently, I can be Harrison Ford's stand-in if you want somebody a little bit chubby who can do some stunts, you know. Give me a call there. They'll never know it's me from behind. The belt is just an army belt, just a regular cotton canvas, and then of course the boots, which again I'm going to do a whole video on boots, and so I'll probably reserve my comments on why I don't own any actual Indy boots. Mostly the price, partly not really on my radar for the kind of boots I usually use. So there you go. Um, like I said, I'm not going to get into boots right now extensively, except to say that I was surprised to learn, more recently that he did use this completely different style of boot because I never really looked at his boots that closely in the movie. I always just kind of assumed they were army boots. And then later you find out, oh no, they actually weren't army boots. And then, of course, the army had a few different models of boots that mostly came out after the time of the Indiana Jones film taking place, the first two or three anyway. So the standard boots that we're thinking of for army weren't even used yet. The army was still, I think, using shoes for the most part with the stirrup garters or whatever the I'll think of the name later if I'm forgetting. And the Marine Corps had slightly different ones than the Army did. The Gators. Uh, so they uh, went with a boot concept with him, and there's a whole backstory, and you've already probably seen it on several other video channels, and I can touch on it again later. And so, what else is there to say about Indy? Well, like I said, it's another one of the looks that I meant to talk about in the first video, though. Again, when I was talking about loggers and cowboys and that kind of thing, is the pilot aesthetic, which is a separate kind of related to, apart from kind of, I had seen somewhere they said it was an English style hat, and others where they said it was kind of an Aussie hat. Well, obviously we associate most of the wide brim hats with Aussie cowboys, so that's kind of a separate genre. Again, Crocodile Dundee is kind of a bastardization of that comes in later because there's overlap of some of these looks and what you can get away with and what looks kind of dorky, or silly is maybe something I'll explore again a little more later. Whereas the pilot look is a bit more refined than Indiana Jones. You're not going to have any, kind of scruffy look. Typically, the rugged thing with Indy, is he's out in the jungle, so he can't shave, and he's usually in hot weather where a leather jacket wouldn't be very appropriate, where a felt hat might get dry rot, things of this nature. How long Indy clothes would actually last in real life. He must just have a good supplier that keeps pumping him with new garments all the time, because I don't see how he keeps the same hat and the same jacket for more than 5 years. But again, I'm in California where things are nice and dry most of the time, and this stuff's held up pretty well for this, probably 20 years old already. And so anyway, the pilot Indy does wear a tie in Last Crusade. He's got a tie for a while, and he has I think it's just a brown plain tie, so it's not quite the same army issue, but they come in, well, I guess just everybody's favorite show. I mean, if I was going to talk about wanting to look like, have a distinct kind of pilot look that isn't just tan shirts all the time, you can go to that program Wings, and there was the two brothers, and Brian was kind of the silly flair goofy one with the wild tie and the colorful shirts, and Joe was kind of the more buttoned down guy with kind of more earth tones and a little more professional try to look. He didn't wear white pilot shirts with the epaulets, but he wore shirts with epaulets most of the time. A true Indy shirt, of course, has epaulets, because it is literally basically an army shirt from that era, as far as I can tell, or a custom version that he gets done on his professor salary. Obviously, when he's a professor, he's just wearing tweed like, any other stereotypical professor of the era. So we'll be doing a tweed video either next, or maybe I'll skip ahead and do boots, just to pique the interest or sate the curiosity. And so I have a few photos. I think instead of trying to narrate what they are, I think it's pretty plain to gather what they are. So I think I'm just going to have kind of more of a standard slideshow here. Well, and of course, there's always afterthoughts or second thoughts, but uh, we will strive for accuracy when we're doing, specific costuming. Like one time I saw a guy, he didn't have any jacket. He had a blue chambray shirt and jeans, but he had the hat. So we all kind of gave him a free pass that we knew he was trying to be Indy, you know. Trust me, right? I won't steer you wrong. Uh, and One time there was another younger guy. He was probably a senior in college. He was out with his buddies, and he had come across me while I was in Indy, while he was in Indy, and his buddies were like, "Oh, this guy, you know, he's got the facial hair and you don't." And he said, "Yeah," and I forget if it was him or the buddy. You have to be, you have to be a man to have facial hair or whatever. So he kind of had to turn his tail and tuck and run. But it was, it's kind of what are you gonna do? Most Halloween costumes are just 80s movies references now anyway. That's not changing. I've already done Top Gun. I've already done Indiana Jones, and I've been doing Star Wars since before many YouTube viewers were born, I'm sure. Oh, it was, "You can't be Indiana Jones if you're not a man," is what he said. I remember now. Well, it's not the years, honey. It's the mileage.